Good morning, everybody. So last week we talked about negotiating on behalf of the buyer's agent. Today we're going to talk about negotiating as a seller's agent. And there's several strategies that I think are very valuable to be aware of. Excuse me. Um, some of it is going to be similar to the buyer agent strategies. Um, Others are going to be unique to the seller, and some things may shock you that I will recommend. So let's get started here. I'm going to ask that you listen to understand. Don't listen to respond, because then you start a debate in your head and you won't hear what's being said following that. So listen to fully understand what I'm sharing with you. Feel free to ask questions for clarification. Lars will read them to me if you just put them in the chat. Um, Understand that multitasking doesn't work. If you are getting ready for an appointment or texting your significant, you're going to miss half of what's being shared. And keep an open mind. So, what you'll learn today is how to be a great listing agent, how to obtain contracts with fewer contingencies, how to close more sales, how to speak to your sellers, and how to be a better negotiator. So, a little bit about me. I got into business in 1976 in Minnesota. I sold there for 4 years, moved back to the DC area, sold for a total of 30 years. Then I went into management. And in 2017, I started studying with Bob Proctor, who is the leading expert on the potential of the human mind, which I discovered is the missing link in all real estate trainings. Because you can know everything there is to know, but you cannot outsell your self image. If you don't see yourself as a winner, there's nothing, no knowledge in the world will make you a better realtor. So that's where my focus is. Napoleon Hill, who wrote the book Think and Grow Rich, says, whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, the mind can achieve. In other words, belief, and every religion in the world all focuses on the fact that belief is the secret to achieving whatever it is that you're trying to do. So, number one, what is your role as a listing agent? So, understanding the negotiation process. Negotiation is a dialogue between two or more people or parties intended to reach a beneficial outcome over one or more issues where a conflict exists with respect to at least one of these issues. This beneficial outcome can be for all parties or just for one or some. Your goal as a listing agent in the negotiation is to obtain the best price and terms for your client, all the while keeping the other party in the deal. If you piss off the other party, if you, um, you know, uh, get them to the point where they don't want to talk to you anymore, and I've seen plenty of that, you're not servicing your client. So be careful that you don't lose the other party. Your job is to get your client's house sold. And remember, it's the client who determines whether the sales price is acceptable. I was working with a builder that was buying properties to tear down and build new homes on. And there was a house in Bethesda came on the market, and my builder offered We wrote a contract for $1.1 million as is at time of possession and a free rent back for 60 days, meaning the seller could stay in the house so that the builder could get permits. Um, and the condition as is at time of occupy, at time of occupation means they can totally destroy the house while they're living in it. They can leave all their trash when they move out. Nothing has to work. They can take the appliances. Builder didn't care because he was going to bulldozer the house. So time, condition of the property at time of possession is a valuable thing for sellers. We thought it was a great offer. It was cash. They took an offer for 1 million. So they gave up $100,000 because they liked the other buyers. The other buyers was a nice family who was going to raise their kids there. And this, family, the seller had raised their kids in this house, and they just thought it would be so nice that that happens versus getting it bulldozered. Well, the day after that property settled, the bulldozers came because this other buyer, had already lined up a builder to tear it down and build their dream home. So the seller accepted 100,000 less, thinking they were getting a nice family. And they got a nice family, but who didn't want the house. So remember, it is the client who determines if the price is acceptable. And your opinion at this point doesn't really enter into it. You explain all there is to explain, and they if they're not uh, on par with it, that's their decision. The seller always sets the asking price, but it is the buyer that sets the market value. If the seller thinks that the buyer is setting that bar too low, then they're basically buying back their house. So you need to be able to explain that to your clients, that it's the buyer that sets the market value. The sales price on behalf of the seller is just an ego trip from the house until they turn off their street. Because after that, it doesn't matter. All they care about is the cash they have in their pocket from the sale. And so that's why you need to focus on the net, on what they're walking away with, not what they are selling their house for. The equity is all that matters for them. So here's some don'ts. Don't take ownership in the deal. If your name is not on the deed, you are simply an advisor. So you never say things like, well, we would never accept that offer, or we're willing to do this. Don't take an ownership in the deal. It'll only get you in trouble. Don't disparage the other agent to your clients. I've dealt with this asshole before. Well, right there, you're making your client have a negative attitude and may not be as willing to negotiate. Um, don't disparage the other party, meaning the buyers, with your client. Don't make decisions on behalf of your client. So I had a situation where one of my agents wrote an offer on a condo in DC and asked for the disclosures. And the the disclosures read, have you ever had troubles with the dishwasher? Have you ever had troubles with the furnace? Have you ever had troubles? And the answers were yes or no. And they had checked yes with every one of them because they misread it. They thought, are these items included? They didn't see the part about having troubles um, with this disclosure on the appliances. And so my agent said, "Can you elaborate to the listing agent? Can you elaborate um, on what uh, on what happened here?" And he said, the listing agent said, "Nothing happened." And she explained how that was incorrectly answered then. And she says, "Can you have the sellers uh, fill out a new one and send it over?" So within 10 minutes, we received a PDF where the yeses were crossed off and the nos were checked. And my agent called the listing agent and said, "Are you sitting with your sellers? Is that why, excuse me, are you sitting, are you sitting with your sellers? Is that why they were able to cross this off?" And he goes, "No, they're out of state." And she said, "Who did this?" He goes, "Well, I did it." And she said, "I would like for you to um, have the seller's initial off on this." And he got belligerent. He's cursing her out. I called the manager. The manager called me back with the agent there, and the agent started screaming at me about how incompetent my agent was, and that he decided that they were not going to deal with our agent or her buyers. Uh, that's not representing your seller. Never tell your clients what to do. You always give them options. You can do this, and here are the consequences. You can do that, and here are the consequences. But you never tell them what to do. Never pick up the ball and go home. Like the story I just told you. He just said, "We're not playing ball anymore." Selling negotiations about teaching your client how to best position their home to secure the best offer from a buyer. You make the necessary disclosures easily accessible for the buyers. And I point this out because many a times people have teams, they have assistants. And I one time asked a listing agent for disclosures. And the listing agent said, "Well, my secretary was supposed to have done that and she's out sick today." I'm sorry, but the buck stops with the listing agent. The listing agent is responsible. You can't pass it off. If the assistant is out sick, then they need to step up and put out the disclosures. Now, having said that, you need to understand that you can write an offer without disclosures. You can present an offer without disclosures. You can ratify a contract without disclosures. And it is perfectly, acceptable. It's just that it's voidable by the buyer until they see the disclosures for a reasonable amount of time. They can void the contract. So never ever wait for the listing agent to send you disclosures if they're not available anywhere else, because you could lose the house for your clients. So that's something that you need to be aware of. I've seen too many agents going, "Well, I'd like to write, but we're waiting for disclosures." Don't ever wait for disclosures. Being available to the buyer's agent for questions. You know, don't don't ghost buyer's agents. If you're representing your seller properly, you never ghost the buyer's agent. And you need to know how to overcome objections. And of course, a winning attitude is important. So when do negotiations begin? I asked this from a buyer's agent standpoint. Now I'm asking it from a listing agent standpoint. When you first meet the prospective seller, when the prospect becomes your client, when you first receive the offer, all of the above, none of the above. Now, from a buyer's agent standpoint, I said none of the above because you need to be meeting agents every day. You need to be establishing relationships every day. Because if you have an offer to present and they know you, the odds of you getting your offer through increases versus being a total stranger. From a listing agent standpoint, negotiations begin when you first meet your prospective seller. And because you need to teach them how to be, how to get the top dollar for their house. Now, a word to the wise, if after the interview you do not get the listing, so you go out there, you give this big, beautiful song and dance, and they go, well, we've decided to list with our cousin um, who just got licensed yesterday. Uh, you need to understand that there's a presumed confidentiality in the during the listing appointment, even though you don't have an agency agreement signed. There's a presumed agency, and therefore, whatever they share with you is confidential. And so, why they're selling, um, how they plan to negotiate, all of that is confidential, unless there's a material fact that affects the sale of the house. So if the seller says, that furnace has a crack in it and it needs to be replaced, but we're not replacing it, we're not disclosing it. If you learn that at the listing appointment and don't get the listing, you do need to disclose that to your buyer. So, second strategy is qualifying the seller. So before the appointment, it's good to write out a description of how you want things to happen. How do you see it happening? What steps do you need to take? And you write it out because you want to impress upon your mind that this is the deal that's going to make you money. And how will it make you money? You write it out. You visualize and get into the feeling of it happening. You want to see happy sellers at settlement, and you want to see them referring 3 or more leads of people that need to sell. You totally focus in on this. Neville Goddard, my favorite author, says, determined imagination, thinking from the end, is the beginning of all miracles. Imagining oneself in the feeling of the wish fulfilled is the means by which a new state is entered. The future must become the present in the imagination of one who would wisely and consciously create circumstances. We must translate vision into being, thinking of into thinking from. I have this quote in all my classes because I just think it is so powerful. So, what do you do before the appointment? You create a subdivision. You create a CMA of the subdivision. You also create one of similar properties sold in the zip code. You create a CMA of all active properties that the buyer would consider. Because they're not going to just buy in your subdivision. They're going to buy maybe along the metro line, or maybe they're going to buy in the school district. What is the reason that somebody would buy this house, and what are you competing with for that? You create a CMA of the expired and withdrawn properties. This is powerful because when a seller says, well, I want to ask, 20% more than the last sale. Well, look here, these expired and these were withdrawn because they couldn't sell at 20% over asking. You create a custom marketing plan. So, with AI, it's easy now, but you just create a marketing plan that you can pop in a picture of their house and pop in their address and pop in their amenities or what have you, which you can get from the MLS from the last time it sold or from the tax records or from your interview with them. But you can create a marketing plan that looks like it's the same one you use over and over, but it looks like you spent hours creating it just for them. And you make an appointment with all the decision makers. Sometimes a parent has to be part of the decision. You want all the decision makers present at the time of the appointment. So in the interview, before your appointment, you question motivation. Don't assume you know why they're selling the house. You want to know what they want and what they need out of this sale. You want to know the time frame that they need to have it sold. And the most important question is why. Really understand why these things are important to them. Like I said on the other presentation, I love Perry Mason. And, lawyers in court already know the answers to the questions they ask. They're not learning the information. Rarely are they caught off guard. That's what they do all the research beforehand. So understand what their needs and goals are. Don't take things at face value. Probe. Keep asking questions. Ask open-ended questions. Don't ask questions where they can go, yeah, no. Ask questions to get them talking. Ask for clarification if necessary. Ask negative questions. And this is powerful. So you want to be in Arizona by June 1st. What would happen if we can't get your house sold by then? And they could come back with, well, it's not a problem because we have, corporate housing we can stay in. So you know, we can keep the house on the market until it finally sells. That's not very highly motivated. But if they say that's a big issue because if we're not there by June 1, we cannot register our kids in school. And that means, that's a highly motivated seller. And when you have the answer, the highly motivated answer, then you can use that if you need to do a price reduction. Remember, you need to be there because I think it's time we reduce the price. Repeat your findings back to them so you are sure that you understand what they're saying and that they know that you understand. And ask if there's anything that they have not yet told you. Some good questions to ask is, have you ever sold a home before? Why would you do that? Because they have experienced something and you need to know how that experience was for them. So, how was that experience? What did your agent do right? What could they have done better? Don't don't go into what did they do wrong. You don't want to relive those negative memories. But what could they have done better? And this is a big one. What is your biggest concern about this move? This says, I care. And one of my agents that sold 2, 3 houses a year, you know. She was a good agent, but she just didn't get a lot of business. She came into my office one day and she said, I have a listing appointment and they're interviewing four agents, me and three others. And the other three are the biggest names in the neighborhood. She said, I'm not even going to bother. And I said, yes, you're going to go and you're going to ask these questions. And I gave her the questions to ask. And the last question was, what's your biggest concern about this move? And she came back, she goes, I got the listing. I said, did you ask them why they chose you? And she said, yes. She said, all these big name agents were just dancing with top hats and canes. I'm so wonderful. I'm so great. I sell so many houses. She goes, not one of them asked her, what's your biggest concern? Not one of them expressed a, a an interest in the client. They were all too busy bragging. It's like I had to have knee replacement surgery. And I went to this doctor that was highly recommended. And I walked in, they took an x-ray. He comes in, he looks at my knee and he goes, yep, full knee replacement. Um, Go to the checkout desk and schedule it. And I just walked out. I just felt like this is a meat locker, this is, conveyor belt surgery. And then talking to somebody else, they said, oh, go to my doctor. He really is good. So I went to see his doctor and he looked at me and he said, yeah, I think we can get by with a partial knee replacement. He says, I don't see any indication that you need a full knee replacement. And I said, what's the difference? And he said, well, because you keep your meniscus, you have more flexibility, it's an easier surgery, less recovery time. And I said, why did this other doctor recommend uh, recommend a full knee replacement? He goes, more money. So I felt he was concerned about me, and that's who did my knee replacement. What's the best way for us to communicate? You want to know how they want to communicate. I have one client, the only way I can reach him is through Facebook Messenger. Doesn't answer text messages, he doesn't answer phones. So if you're not on the same wavelength, that can cause problems. So, okay. So before the appointment, you want to create your arsenal. And this is all the material that you're going to bring with you to the listing appointment. You want to have a flow chart of the selling process. And by now, I'm sure you guys are going, God, this is work. Well, you're getting paid big dollars. So this is not busy work. This is having an interest in your clients and making sure that they're comfortable hiring you. And I'll tell you this, none of the agents are doing this. So if you do it, you're going to stick out above all the others. You have your various CMAs with you. You have your marketing plan with you. You have marketing statistics. Bright can pull up any type of statistics you need. And you should know these statistics. If somebody says to you, how's the market? Everybody else says, oh, so busy. I'm so busy. I'm selling houses in 5 minutes from the time they go into the multiple listing. And I'm busy, 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 busy. That doesn't tell them about the market. But what if you said, you know what? Market's strong, you know, listing inventory is up by 7%. Sales are up by 10%. The average sales price is $695,000. And now you're giving them meat and potatoes to eat, to bite into. Now you're telling them, I'm the smartest realtor around. But you have the statistics that affect the property that you're trying to get listed. Do a seller's estimated net sheet. They need to understand how much cash they're walking away with and pad it. You know, what I mean by padding it, first of all, you don't pick the highest price for the net sheet. You pick the average price that you think it will sell for, maybe even a little bit below. And when you do padding, I mean, if the um, if the title fee is 500, you make it 750. Just cushion it because you don't know which attorney they're going to use and what they charge, but you pad it because when an offer comes in and you do a net sheet on the offer and it's higher than the one you did at the listing presentation, they're going to be more receptive to accepting the offer. You include a sample sales contract with the popular addendums for them to review. Most people won't review them, but when an offer comes in and you don't want the seller to say, well, I got to read everything here. So if you give them a sample contract at listing time, then when an offer comes in, you say, you did review the contract already, right? And they'll always say yes. Include your references, the people that think you walk on water. And if you're new and don't have references, talk to your manager about references of the company. Now, this is super important. Be a professional. You go see a professional doctor, you go see a professional lawyer, you go see a professional accountant. You want to be a professional realtor. So that means you dress professionally. Now, so many people say, well, I don't have to. It's always the biggest argument I got from agents. And I always say, if you have to defend why you're not dressed professionally, you're not dressed professionally. Okay. Now, does that mean coat and tie or dress, for every appointment? No. If your client is a golfer, showing up with a coat and tie is kind of ridiculous. But you never want to be below a polo and khaki pants. Um, an agent told me that her best friend was moving out of the area and she was going over to list their house. And after that, she was going to the gym. So she showed up in her gym clothes to get the papers signed. And they went through the whole process. And then the husband said, let me walk you out to your car. And at the car, he says to her, he says, I listed with you because you're my wife's best friend, but you totally disrespected my house by showing up in sweats. He said, I expect a professional realtor. That was a big lesson. And here's the thing that you need to realize. It's not what they say, it's what they don't say. So don't think that because they didn't say anything, they accepted how you look. Have a professional presentation. Don't come in with a bunch of papers loosely. Have it bound. Speak professionally. No curse words, no slang, no shop talk. A lot of people don't understand shop talk. You want to act professionally, and you want to do this especially with friends and family because they will list with you because you are friends and family. but they won't refer you because they don't want to lose their friends if they refer you and you're not professional with them. So, especially with friends and family, be professional. Knock their socks off. Step three is the education. So you arrive at the appointment. You clear your mind of all negative thoughts and beliefs. You reread the description you wrote about the events that are about to happen. You visualize with feeling the results you seek. And as you walk up to the door, you stand up straight and you snap your fingers and say, "Showtime," because you are putting on a show. You are going in there and you are going to razzle dazzle them. You don't want to drag yourself in going, "Oh, let's get this over with." You're on stage and they're looking at everything you're doing. So during the appointment, make sure you have their attention. Just because they're sitting there, they may not be listening to you. I had it happen where the wife was sitting in the family room watching Wheel of Fortune. I walked out and she said, "I can hear you." And I said, "No, if they're serious about selling, call me." Not only did they never call me, they never sold. Review their motivation. You need to be in Wyoming by July 5th. And then you ask the money making question. This question is what's going to make the listing go your way. And it's the money making question. What would it take for you to list your home with me today? And then you're silent. You wait for their answer. And if you say anything, you're going to break the magic of this question. And the reason you ask this is because you want to focus on just that point and nothing else. So you brought everything with you, the marketing plan, the CMAs, the statistics. If they come back to you and they want to say, "Well, if we can agree on a list price, then we'll list with you." Well, then pull out the CMAs and leave everything else in your briefcase. If they say, "Well, we want to know what you're going to do to get us the best price," pull out your marketing plan and leave everything else in your briefcase. Only focus on the answer to this question. You do want to discuss the home selling process, the pros and cons of contingencies, financing, home inspection, radon, master plan, lead inspection. You want to educate them on the market. Review all the homes that are currently competing with. Discuss absorption rate. Absorption rate is easy to calculate, but nobody does. Share the absorption rate. It will help in establishing a price. Discuss pricing strategy. Calculate their estimated net. Discuss timing of when to go on the market. Agree on a winning strategy. And only pull out that part of the presentation that addresses the answer to the money making question. Don't sell with blah, blah, what you can sell with blah, meaning don't talk yourself out of the listing. One of my past clients called me and said, "My mother needs to sell her house." And by then I was a manager and I wasn't allowed to sell as a manager. And so I took my number one agent in that market to the house. And she went through her whole listing presentation. And the mother said, okay, let's do this. And the agent actually said, not yet. I haven't shown you my portfolio. And I kicked her under the table and I said, she's ready to sign. Okay. You're done selling. When you have the order, stop selling. Get their signature on the contract. You want, when they agree to list with you, you want to get that signature super fast. If it means having a laptop with you for them to sign it digitally, if you brought out a paper contract and have it wet signed, you want to get that signature right away. You don't want to let them rethink things while you go to the office and put together the listing paperwork. Do's and don'ts of negotiations. Don't ever lie. Don't make promises you can't keep. You know, we always want to overpromise and then we underdeliver. And that is a kiss of death. Don't interrupt the person speaking. Don't wait to tell bad news. I saw an interesting thing with, oh God, now his name escapes me. He's a famous speaker. He had just discovered that at Disney, all the characters have a rule that they have to abide by. And that is when a little kid comes up and hugs them and they hug them back, but they don't let go until the child lets go. The child lets go first. I thought that was so cool. Don't break your client's trust. Don't allow parties' expectations to become unmanageable. Don't draw the line in the sand. Don't take ownership in the deal. And don't underestimate the other side. Don't assume the other party won't change their position. Don't assume the other party is always telling the truth. Don't scream back in anger. Don't get stuck on a minor issue. Don't think one person has all the power. Don't disparage one type of financing over another. This is important. There's so many agents that say, oh, we don't do VA financing. Why? It's money. It's the same money as cash. If they have all the qualifications in place, you know, don't disparage the financing. Don't assume you can't negotiate in person. And don't change the rules mid-negotiation. This is so important. So many people say, well, we'll allow escalation clauses. And then they counter with, okay, we're throwing out escalation clauses. Bring us your highest and best. No, if you're accepting it, accept it. Don't change it midstream. Don't uh, be confident in your negotiation strategy. Uh, be yourself and stay calm. Be personable. Use names. Listen carefully and take notes. Why do you want to take notes? Because if ever it goes to arbitration or ethics, your notes that you took when the events happened carry far more weight than having to reconstruct it 3 months later. Be flexible because everything is negotiable. Stay focused on achieving the sale. Negotiate by highlighting the strengths of the deal. Be prepared to trade. and make all terms as specific as possible. Have more than one way to achieve the goal. Have all the facts and figures at your disposal. Have a clear understanding of the statistics. Keep your clients informed of the hurdles. Do everything to enhance the atmosphere of trust. Kill them with kindness. Have a clean contract to start, but keep the history of the negotiations on the contract. Allow the negotiations to follow the necessary time frame and remind the seller to secure valuables and medicines. So important. So once you have the listing, have the sellers perform a home inspection, a radon inspection, and any other inspections. If the home is old enough, do a lead base inspection. If it's on septic and well, have those done. Why do I say that the seller do these now? Because you want to eliminate as many contingencies before the contract is ratified, because buyers use contingencies to renegotiate the price. Because they think that by offering a high price, getting a house, and now doing the home inspection and a radon and a lead, they can start chiseling down the price. But if you remove all of that, you will get a higher price for your clients. Leave the reports out for the buyers to see with any receipts of repairs, and an explanation that offers without contingencies will receive preferential treatment. So if you eliminate all the chances of these contingencies, you're going to get a cleaner contract. And when it's ratified, the odds of it going to settlement are pretty high. Ask your preferred settlement company to do a title search. You don't want to show up at settlement and find out that there is an unreleased lien on the property that's going to take 5 days to get resolved. Have your preferred lender create different financing scenarios for buyers that you can leave out. See, you're trying to answer all the buyers' questions up front. Create a home book about the property, featuring the property floor plan, the subdivision plat, the house location survey, the school information, neighborhood information. Have pictures of the neighborhood in there. Have pictures of the house in different seasons. Have, the seller probably has all of those. Anything in the book that you can, and this is a book that stays in the house um, but the buyer can look through it to get all their questions answered. And the second part of this is if you give it to the seller, then they will keep it for future reference as a memory of where they lived, but also it keeps you in front of them. If the sellers are leaving the state, give the book to the buyers. I've had plenty of listings over the years where I was the listing agent and the buyers, when they went to sell, called me. So you want to keep in touch with the buyers after settlement because the agency agreement has ended. Have a cover sheet for the disclosures with instructions for the buyer's agent to address when the contracts are due, escalation clauses. Are you accepting them or not? I'm not a fan of escalation clauses because basically it's a counter. And we can get into that another time, but Give me your high. You want the house, step up to the plate. What is it worth to you? The buyer's financials, lender letter after credit report has been reviewed, bank statements if for to show proof of funds, source of funds to close, contact info for the buyer's lender. You want the property professionally photographed and keep the pictures truthful. If there's a power line in the backyard, don't Photoshop it out. I had a listing that had a huge water tower in the backyard. We priced the property accordingly. Um, and But the professional pictures are so much better because the cameras they use now can take pictures with three different lightings so that when you see the picture, you can see clearly what's outside, what's inside. Uh, and it just shows so much better. But I've seen cell phone pictures where they took a picture of the house and you can see the car's rear view mirror in the foreground because the agent was too lazy to get out of the car. Create a property brochure or a website of the home. Create a one-page flyer about the property without the price, and then go door knock through the neighborhood announcing the listing. We just listed this house down the street. Uh, Again, you go door knocking to invite the neighbors to the open house. Some agents will hold an open house for neighbors from 12 to 2 and 2 to 4 for buyers because they don't want the neighbors walking through the house with buyers going, you know, uh, God, we had that burglary across the street here. Remember that, Frank? Boy, they really ransacked that house. You don't want any of that to come out. Um, and then when it sells, you go door knocking again. You pick up names, you put them in your database, you start marketing to them. When a house sells in a neighborhood, there's usually another one that comes on shortly thereafter. So by you having three touches through the neighborhood, then you're already ahead of the game. And every neighbor you talk to, each time you talk to them, you ask them, when do you plan on moving? That is a powerful question. For open houses, arrive early, put up signs from a major road. Now, yes, with the internet now, people and GPS, people don't need signs, but there's a lot of people just weren't planning to go to an open house and they drive by the neighborhood and they go, oh, I always wanted to live in this neighborhood, wonder what's for sale. And they come in. I ask people, how did you come here? And they say, yeah, we saw the signs. Turn on every light in the house, every light. Open every curtain and shade. Set up guest register in the kitchen with handouts. Set the mood with soft music. When people come in, greet them at the door. Don't be sitting on the couch watching TV. Don't be working on your laptop. Greet them at the door. Ask them to sign the guest register. If they don't sign in, ask them to come back with their agent. You have a responsibility to that seller that I would want to know who's been in my house. They're going to want to know who's been in their house. I've even written down license plate numbers when I suspected they gave me a bogus name. Tell them a little bit about the house and then let them discover it on their own. If they don't know what a kitchen is, they shouldn't be buying a house. If there's other floors, show them where to access it and what to look for. And when they are finished, ask if they have any questions. And as they leave, there's another money-making question to ask them. Do you want to buy this house? I can't tell you how many agents don't ask if they want to buy the house. They just assume they're looking. And here is why this is so powerful. It triggers their verbal floodgates and they start talking and they'll say, "Oh, we just started looking. We haven't decided where we want to live." Great. How about a complimentary buyer consultation? I can explain to you the home buying process. I can show you what you get for your money in different neighborhood, offer them some value and to meet with you. And they say, "Oh, we live in the neighborhood." Then you say, "Well, has this been a good investment for you?" "Oh, yes." "Well, have you ever thought of owning a rental property in this neighborhood because it's such a good investment?" Or they may say, "Well, we're thinking about selling our house. We want to see how this compares. Can I offer you a free market analysis on your home? No obligation." This is the question that gets you uh, the best odds of securing an appointment.
Roger,
Yeah,
we're at the top of the hour. Just
I
wanted to
saw that.
give you a heads up.
Um, all right, let me quick zoom through here. I should be done. Um, when you do more than you're paid for, eventually you get paid for more than you do. This is a basic truth that also applies to business sales or anything you do. Whatever your endeavor, always provide more service than you get paid for, and you will develop a reputation that will separate you from the rest. This is from Zig Ziglar. Um, some quick tips. You represent your client, not the other agent. All right. The person most interested in getting this house sold is the buyer's agent. So why wouldn't you want them to present their offer? I've had buyer agents improve their offer without a counter because they so want to get the sale. For bank statement for cash offers, um, get bank statements and speak to the lender if there's a contract. For multiple offers, create a comparison sheet. And, across the top, you have the buyer's names. Down the side, you have the terms of the contract, and only present this comparison sheet. And when they pick the winning offer, then you can go through the contract with them. But don't go through each contract. If there's too much information, it becomes overwhelming and they can't make a decision. Another money making tip is ask the second best offer if they want to be a backup, because you don't want to go back on the market. You'll never get a good price the second time around. So if they're in a backup position, the first contract drops off, your house is still sold, if not the third one. And then again, it's not your job to pay for the house. This is a good trick. If they have a line of equity credit, that means they've already taken their equity out of the house. So you add that into the net and say, "See, this is what you would have gotten had you not, you know, double dipped." But you can't get the money twice. Okay. Um, we can wrap it up here.
All right. Great job, Roger. Any questions?